Hello, everyone. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, depending on where you're joining us from. Hi, everyone. If you can see and hear me clearly and the speaker for the day clearly, just put a hi in the chat box. Okay, can we be seen? Yes, no. Okay, thanks, Tanmay. Thanks for validating. Uh, Thank you and welcome again for an exciting new session of Insights with upGrad, the blockchain series. In part three of the three-part series, today we have Karnika Yashwant, or famously known as Key in the blockchain world. Thank you so much, Karnika, for taking time out today for addressing all the people who are excited to hear about this session today, which is on career roadmap in the blockchain industry. And thanks to everybody for joining in. Two very quick rules of the session before I dive into introducing Karnika and then handing it over to him. For any audio or visual related queries you have, please feel free to put it in the chat box. If there's any questions Karnika has for you during the session, do type the answers for that in the chat box. For any questions you wish Karnika to pick up at the end of the session, please use the Q&A box. I'll be picking up questions from there to answer at the end. To understand a little bit more about all of you today, we've got a poll to understand the work experience and the outcome that you're expecting from today's session so that we can make this a more fruitful experience for all of you. So please feel free to quickly tap those two tick boxes that fit your need the best. Kanika, I hope you're able to see the
Yes, I can see the poll.
live
It's
results.
coming up fast.
Okay, we see around 70% of you have already voted, waiting for the other 30% to quickly type in. And a lot of them are excited to build their career in blockchain, so that clearly defines our outcome for today. And heavily, I think, dominated by the younger crowd today. Okay, that's good information to begin with, and formally welcoming Key you to the session. So Key brings an insider perspective to blockchain ventures and crypto startups. He shares cutting edge content marketing strategies from his 15 years of marketing and management experience. He has been in the crypto space since 2013, working with almost all top brands including eToro, Ledger, DuckDAO, News BTC, Bitcoinist, and more. Perfectly balanced in mind and body, he runs marathons, targets shoots, engages in extreme sports, and takes a vacation in 5+ countries annually. So, a very attractive proposition for a lot of folks attending here. So, welcome to the session, Ki, and I hand it over to you from here.
Yes. Thank you for your introduction, and thank you everyone for joining as well. Pretty excited to be here today. I'll start by giving a quick background of where I come from, and then we'll dive right onto the topics we have. So I have been in this world of blockchain since 2013. Even before that, for many years, working on the marketing space, taking many brands to amazing heights in the past. In the blockchain space, it's been an amazing journey. I'm very happy to see more and more people coming in, joining, wanting to move your careers here, because it is not only an evolving and fast growing space, but most importantly, it's where the future is built on. It's where the value and creative opportunities are coming up every single day at a speed and at a velocity which has never ever been seen before. And it's definitely a very good and interesting time to be in, to see how things are starting or how things are evolving. And I was pretty fortunate to be in this space for almost 7-8 years right now, looking at it from the days when it was not really known or seen at the extent that it is right now. So being in the space, we pick up many things along the way. We end up learning how to code things, we also learn how to market things and how to understand, comprehend, and connect various different elements in this blockchain space together. And working on some of the earliest of the exchanges and various development opportunities of even the smart contracts or even full blockchain by itself. When we involve in those areas, it helps us to think and realize the potential, not just from a scope standpoint, looking at something and trying to develop or trying to build something, but actually feeling and thinking how this is going to impact our life, how this is going to impact the world around us. And having gone through that journey over these years, it has given a beautiful perspective to how I and many people that I work with see this blockchain world. It's not really to us. It's not a new industry that you grow a career in, but it's a lifestyle. It's a choice. It's how you live. It's how you choose to think. It is much more than just one another place to work or one another industry to function in. So with that background, my major focus all these years has been Key Difference Media, my marketing agency. So which gives us an opportunity to pretty much look at two sides of the spectrum. One, we work with cutting edge companies which are creating new blockchain entities, going out there, marketing themselves and trying to reach more audience. But that puts us in a situation where we look at scaling, growing and expanding more, which means we constantly hire people. So we have been on the edge of hiring dozens and dozens of people every single month for a long time now. We have 350 people working in our organization, and hiring is a never ending process for us. So that has given us insights on what exactly is needed in a person. What do we look for when we hire anyone in the space? It could be a writer, developer, it could be someone who pretty much even conceptualizes what a blockchain should be or should have. In any area, there are few primary things that excite us, that shows us that a person is ready for what this industry has for him. So we will first understand a little bit about the various uses that blockchain has in this creative industry and how it is expanding, and then dive on to the carrier specific portions here. So, and yes, anytime you have questions, feel free to use the Q&A and chats, etc., like she explained, and I'll be happy to pick up those as we progress between sessions and towards the end as well. So if you see the way the industry has been evolving, now we have it moving towards not only the blockchain as a core infrastructure or cryptocurrency as a means of financial transaction, but we have the NFTs for artists and various individuals or companies who are trying to build value out of what they do. It could it's even moving into events right now, people creating event tickets, and into something more exciting as a metaverses and gaming. So literally now with metaverses and all this, and it's there are various concepts that will be going around, and if any of these concepts are unclear to you in full, please do make a note, because Google and the internet has a lot of resources that you can definitely check out if something isn't clear. But I'll try my best to keep things simple and explain each of the elements in brief. But the world is an open place, and if you start exploring, I don't think there are any limits to what this industry has to offer. So apart from blockchain and cryptocurrency, yes, NFT, non-fungible tokens, that is a type of token which is only available once. It's unique, it's rare, like art or anything that is 100% non-replicatable. It's not like a $1 equals $1, but that is unique by itself. So music, art, and any of those elements would fall under the NFT category. And metaverse is a place where the whole world, the whole and everything that you see around yourself would go into the metaverse, which is the digitalized virtual universe, where you can open your digital shop, you can open up your business there, you can bring people and have it even there, tourism there, you can take your NFTs and place it there. So literally it's recreating the world that we live in, but digitally with true decentralized ownership. So as this grows, it's not only changing the world of decentralized finance that's replacing the banking, it is also changing the world of education with the DED, decentralized education model, which is in the next 5 years or so, even technically COVID is propelling it forward, but in the next 5 years or so, we would have universities and various organizations going down as decentralized education takes over. And we also have areas on virtualization and investments and so on and so forth. So blockchain has pretty much infiltrated a good portion of the global landscape, and it is expanding its utility, its function everywhere. So it doesn't matter whether you've been working in supply chain or a manufacturing based process, or uh, literally any portion of anything. You have some experience working 1, 2, 3, 5 years in any industry, everything is coming back, getting connected to the blockchain, because blockchain is going everywhere. So you don't really have to worry about transitioning. You're not really leaving everything that you know and going to an industry where you're new, but you're connecting the experience that you have and bringing it over here and extending the available inventory within this blockchain space. Because the way the industry right now is that the amount of people available to do things, to get things done, are extremely limited. There's a high level of scarcity for anyone. If you want to find a blockchain developer who's good, I mean, again, I'm not talking about everyone who says on the profile that they can do smart contracts. I'm talking about those who actually can get something done, not copy fork things, but actually think through and design something that works for an entity for whatever their need is. So at that level of quality, the industry runs at a high level of scarcity. So everyone are in demand. People are so busy. They're all tied up working literally 22 hours a day, because that's the amount of pressure that's on the available manpower in the space. So as people come in and they bring their own areas of expertise in here, and they try to bring that hybrid quality and hybrid value to various businesses and entities, it is going to make this place much more easier to grow, faster to grow, which also opens door for quite a lot of opportunities for everyone that's here, that's looking at, that's trying to learn, and that's trying to engage in the space. But the major question that comes up is when we talk about learning something here, people would jump directly onto, okay, what languages do I learn? What do I code? Where do I go and try to figure something out around it? But upskilling or getting an entry in the space has 80% to do with this industry, learning this, the mindset of the space, and 20% about the actual coding or actual skill there, which is the challenging balance here. Because if you're moving from, let's say, one technology in the traditional world to another, you would pretty much just learn that code completely. You would learn it inside out, and you know how to program, what is the syntax, what do you do, how do you handle it, how do you compile it. You learn that and you go ahead and manage it. But blockchain is so different. It's because most of the people, most of the businesses that enter the space, they themselves do not have a clear idea on what they're trying to do. It's almost like hacking your way through. People are creating on the fly, people are thinking on the fly, things change every day. You cannot learn something on one day and expect the same to be used 6 months from now. At the speed of growth that we have here, literally, if someone doesn't spend 12 hours to 16 hours a day learning, studying, working in the space, within 2, 3 months of not doing that, they would be obsolete. They'd be obsolete even in 1 month or 1.5 months. That's the speed at which this industry is growing, which makes learning constant and never-ending learning and mandatory part of being present in the blockchain space. So when we talk about getting in the entry, the first and foremost thing is to start to understand what's happening here. Why did the blockchain space start? What is the beginning of it? It's not when Satoshi Nakamoto wrote about Bitcoin white paper, but it goes far before that. There has been multiple research going on even before, for more than 100 years. People trying to create something that does not depend on limited infrastructure. People trying to decentralize things and democratize things. So understanding where it starts, the philosophy of it, is going to determine how you understand, comprehend anything that you develop moving forward, anything that you create in this industry. And the moment you understand the philosophy and how people think, because the way people think, or those users are the ones who are using your applications, using anything that you build, or those are the ones, your clients, let's say, if a company is trying to hire developers to build something, their clients are looking at it from a very specific perspective, and knowing what that is, what they feel about privacy, what do they feel about their identity sharing, and what do they feel about other institutions and entities meddling with their data, about how they interact with the world. All of that makes a lot of difference in how we comprehend something in this space, and the transparency of what we share, what we don't share, etc. And knowing that would be the very first step before you can go ahead and try to put anything together in terms of code or developing and bringing it to life. The best way, if you ask me, is to learn, of course, learn things, but after that, watch the news, see what's happening, what is going on a day-to-day basis, what are people doing, what are they struggling with. The markets are going down, markets are going up, blockchain technologies are being invented, people are trying to create something, something is hacked, something is obsolete, something is newly invented, someone is starting up, raising funds to start up something on the new category, new space, or let's say in uh, trying to revolutionize a particular sector. So when you try to look at all these different areas, you get to broaden your perspective of what it is that the world is trying to do. Because before you find your place in the world, you need to know what the world is up to. It's like trying to get on a treadmill. If the treadmill is already running, you need to know at what speed it's going. How do you jump on it? You need to plan. It's already running at a warp speed. So if you're trying to get on a treadmill which is standing still, you should have done that in 2009, but it's already running at an intense speed. And right now, it's more important to know what is going on and how it's going on and how people behave around it, so you can find your best place and your opportunity there. So what we have here, the challenge equals the amount of opportunity we have. The bigger the challenge, the complex the industry is, and more difficult it is for someone to onboard, the bigger barriers to entry, that is the equal level of opportunity that we have in the space as well. So with that, I would say get in, learn things, look at the news, look at what other companies are doing, look at what, let's say you are coming from a particular industry, you have been working on a particular technology all these years, look at what is happening in the same sector if they're incorporating blockchain. How are they doing that? How are your competitors of things that you're experienced around doing that? So the moment you start to explore each of those elements and connect that dots with what you already know, what you have already been trained for, what you have the experience for, then you would start to realize the potential that stands before you and your position of the value that you can deliver out here. If you can, I would say not only be there, but even apart from blockchains, try to develop something on your own, try to download, try to see what other scripts or how does it work, because blockchain coding by itself is not complicated. If you're coding something, you can learn this pretty easily, but the complexity comes more from understanding, not the technical areas of coding it. This industry is in a much nascent stage. You don't have the same level of infrastructure, same level of sophistication that you would see in other spaces. You might have worked in various corporations and entities which follow a much rigorous process. In the blockchain space, you don't have that. People sit around in Telegram, they plan things on Telegram, they push things on GitHub on a hourly minutes basis. They don't have a very big system of verifying, checking things. They find what it is, they test it, it breaks, they fix it, and they move on. It's a community driven thing. Not one entity fixes it, not one entity is building it. They all as a community work together, they share, and they work from not only open source. You have amazing copy left projects because people care about what they deliver here. People care about what this industry stands for, and not just about owning something. It's about creating a revolution, not owning it. So that is a difference in mindset even for the companies that create it, which allows you to even be more open, more transparent, and more forward looking here, because people are trying to build an ecosystem. They are building something much larger than what one entity or one company can be. A lot of entities that you might end up working with, they might not be companies that with an offers that might be structured. They might be entities which are DAO, completely decentralized autonomous organizations, which do not have a CEO, which are completely run by the community for the community. And as you work in that environment, it's not just a leader telling you what to do, but being responsible for yourself, for your position, and trying to understand all these different elements beyond just the coding matters a lot. That is the biggest gap. That's the biggest challenge. Coding is going to be the easiest part when you get on and you start practicing. So feel the space, and the moment you do that and you gain the relevance, you would be in a much better position to learn any other areas on in terms of purely coding and other parts to get going with it. So how to stay updated to create a career in this field? How do you stay updated? That's one thing I learned from various developers in the space is that when they try to develop something, when they try to figure something, they keep connecting with other developers, they keep connecting with other experts in the industry, they participate in various open clubhouses or events, or just like this webinar, they learn, they attend events, they connect and figure out, they participate in hackathons. And the more they do that, the more they understand that there's so much in the industry that they have no idea about. You can ask a developer who has been in the space for 3-4 years. That's a very good experience in the space, because the kind of age the industry is, and 3-4 years is quite a bit. And most of those developers will have no clue what's happening with half of the industry. They have been there, they've been doing it, and still that doesn't put them in the most experienced or most known, which is where they can continue growing, continue expanding, continue figuring out what else can happen. And if you look at the models of how these developers coexist, not apart from trying to figure out the technical challenges, there are a lot of industry level problems that do not have solutions for. When we talk about smart contracts, you still cannot move things between two blockchains easily. You cannot move things between two smart contracts easily. You cannot transfer any asset without breaking some of the foundational rules that a smart contract has set in the space. So the industry has a million and one unknown variables, things that people have not figured out how to solve it. Even with thousands and thousands of developers joining in every day, they are not really figured how certain things are solved. And that is where the biggest opportunity is. This industry does not need hard workers who are just going to create thousands and thousands of lines of new code. That is the easier part. But they're looking at thinkers and those who would help this industry find a way forward to figure things that they have not, which ideally means bringing your overall qualitative experience and subjective knowledge into making things much more wider and applicable for the space. So before I jump in any further, I'd just like to see what open questions you guys have. I can attend to it, and I'll jump in on the next segment here.
I don't see any open questions right now, but what
We
maybe I'd
cannot show
like
you.
to. Hello. Can you hear me now?
So until she connects, why don't you guys tell me? Okay, you can see already your questions are popping up. Prime language for starting a career in blockchain, I would say, whatever, when you talk about smart contracts, they are usually in Solidity. And again, I'm not going to be jumping in, like I said, just on the tech aspects. You know a particular programming, you know how something works. And now forget about what is primary, what you need to learn. Look about what is the kind of impact that you want to make and what segments of it interest, because there are multiple there are way too many variations of things that you can do. It's not just one. Solidity obviously is the largest adopted one because it's again based on Ethereum, and that helps people to move between Binance Smart Chain or Solana, and many more, because they're all EVM compatible. So it's easy for people to move between one another if it's programmed in Solidity. But I wouldn't say limit yourself to any one of that. Try to explore the space first. Forget about what languages that you need to look for, and as you figure those aspects out, you would start to find what you need to put in, what you need to learn, what segments you need to look at. So I wouldn't really start with what language, but look at what you want to do and what you like at this point. Because if you start, let's say, only with smart contracts, a lot of developers do that, but they keep doing just that. They keep working on smart contracts, which are pretty much the same, but there is no scope of growth for them unless they actually look at the other areas as well. EVM compatibility from Nitish. EVM is Ethereum virtual machine. So if someone has deployed something in Ethereum, they can deploy this code base, which is EVM compatible or Ethereum compatible, in any of the EVM based blockchains. So there are quite a lot, a good portion of the blockchains, they are based out of Ethereum in a EVM basis. So you can deploy the same code everywhere. So if for example, you have developed something, a smart contract and Solidity for let's say on the Ethereum network, you can deploy that in Binance Smart Chain, immediately it'll work. You have Reef blockchain, you have 100 more, and you don't have to change anything, but it's a different blockchain with different fee structure, different rules, maybe the way of proof of work from proof of stake changes. There might be blockchain fundamental differences, but they're all built based on the same base, which would make it so much easier for you to move your code base between one to another, which is where the largest economy is. Because if that open economy exists where people can move from one to another, that's when the growth can happen. If something is limited, something is a closed economy, people wouldn't be able to function effectively there, because they have to learn something specific dedicated to one particular environment and not be able to transfer that and use that in other places. So that's a whole idea behind creating an EVM compatible. It's based on Ethereum, but they are able to modify it. So I hope that answers your question.
So for those of you who heard a terminology called proof of work, proof of state, we've already covered that in the first part of our session. So if you want to go back, look at it, deep dive through that session, or yeah, just that, I think that'll be helpful.
Okay, and
there's one from Tanuj which says, I mean, how can a person from a non-technical background make his or her career in?
That's a good one. The big question that I would be asking you is, do you really want to actually only pursue a technical career or not? That's a most important thing that you need to answer, because blockchain is not all about technology. 90% of people in the blockchain, 99%, they don't understand technology. The blockchain space has less than 1% developers, and there is so much scope for everyone. There is a place for marketers, for writers, for designers, for creative artists, for people trying to innovate, idea thinkers, visionaries, entrepreneurs, teachers. There are millions of jobs there, millions. So developing is one thing. And of course, if you do have a technical background, you want to develop, that is a massive opportunity, no doubt, because this industry is founded on the concept of development. It's the whole, from the Bitcoin to blockchain to everything that we see is nothing but piece of code. So development is the base, the foundation where a large opportunity is, but then that is not the only opportunity in the space. If you look at me, I was in the development space many, like 15 years ago, literally. And I was developing things I have not been developing things for more than dozens of years. But I've been in the space understanding how development works, which is more important than actually developing itself. And that helps me to manage multiple development projects, to create architecture for various projects, and to create structure on how something should work and how something should be functioning. So there are just way more other opportunities as well. You don't necessarily have to just be there coding. Understanding even from non-technical way can help you lead to amazing areas in this industry, because there's a massive need for thinkers and creators.
Interesting perspective there. So I hope everybody who's attending, you can just put it in the chat box if there's one particular industry you are in, you want to know from that particular perspective as well.
I can see a question from Sai Vardhan. I'm a banker for last 12 years. How can I get into blockchain? As I know blockchain is going to be the next big thing in banking. Well, it is not the next big thing in banking, it's replacing the banking. So yes, you better, when you look at it from a financial perspective, I would say there is an opportunity for real bankers to use their banking experience in the decentralized finance, DeFi world, because DeFi is all about lending, borrowing, money markets, derivatives, and synthetic tokens, which are basically something that mimics. So having one stock in the real world equals one synthetic crypto token here, but then the value remains the same, tied to one another. Not a stable coin, but it's tied to an asset. So you can trade anything in the synthetic world here. And that way there are many opportunities for a banker. But the moment you try to move from banking industry to here, the biggest difference is you're being trained all the 12 years to think in a particular way: compliance, regulations, restrictions, rules. You are the boss. But in this world right now, the individuals are the boss. If you don't provide them what they like, they just disconnect their wallet in a click and connect the wallet to another protocol. And within 1 second, their customer, they move their entire assets, because you don't have anything. You don't control anything. They control everything. So they are really the bosses here, and they are technically even anonymous in most of the cases. So understanding those differences and trying to connect it to how you want to use is going to make a lot of difference there. So again, as I said, as a banker, your potential in the space is massive, because most people in the DeFi, they're developers. They don't understand the banking principles. Of course, there are economists and mathematicians creating more and more principles there, but coming from a banking background would give you a leg up, because you understand how the finance market works, and then it's easy for you to connect what's going on with that and bring about a better product, more reliable product, more usable product, which is safe, secure for the audience. And so people like you would have a more demand from a consulting and to bring your experience on. So I would say start looking at the DeFi market, look at what is happening there, what people are thinking about, what are the problems that they face. The problems that banking industry has is being fixed by DeFi, but DeFi has its own problems. Look at what problems DeFi has that can be fixed with your experience, making it even better. And that should be the perspective when you look at it. It's a matter of periodical improvements. Constant and never-ending improvement is how this NTS space works.
Sorry, to add to it, we had one session exclusively covering this space in much detail in yesterday's session, and was taken by the MD of AgriLedger. You may want to read about that. It was covering CBDCs, which is central bank digital currency. Just have a look at these terms, and you may want to explore that further.
Makes sense. I can see one from one on Microsoft has developed BaaS, which is blockchain as a service, and how would that affect blockchain developers? Well, blockchain as a service is just going to make things easier for people to deploy, for people to get something up and running, for people to develop easier with a more guided structure and so on. So it's almost saying what is the difference between Linux and Windows 10. So that's, I mean, I'm not sure if that is the best comparison, but to me, that is what it sounds like, because this industry cannot be limited by their copyright protection and their licensing terms and so on. So of course, that will help with many of the small level businesses, individuals, because they cannot spend hundreds and thousands of dollars developing their own application. So they can use this blockchain as a service to get things out quickly. So it will develop the grassroots level, but it might not be the innovation maker in the space, because people would obviously, most of the industries with developers, they're obviously trying to create something new every single day, and they would not really like something patented, protected by one entity in how they use it, how they function. But yes, there is a massive scope for that, and developers will have an ecosystem there, no doubt. It's just another area that people would like to function, just like how you have Android and you have iOS. iOS has its own user base, and people develop there, and still Android users and all the other open source applications, they function in their own world. So everyone has their place, and more such blockchain as a service will continue to develop in the days to come as well.
Amazing.
So I do see a question from PNC.
Follow-up question to that would be, like, wouldn't BaaS fall in SaaS ideally?
It technically is derived from the same thing, software as a service, blockchain as a service. It's pretty much how it is worded. So now it's simple as creating an Oracle database or some kind of a paid digital database and giving people access to store data in there through API. That's exactly what most of this blockchain as a service does. They create the same infrastructure in blockchain and provide you with infrastructure. Just save things, use things from here. You can record the data here, but it doesn't necessarily make it independent, fully decentralized. The decentralization element is hurt in that process, but well, you have something easier and simple there.
So you were covering PN Singh's question, yeah.
Yes, I have 15 years of experience and 3 certification in blockchain from blockchain. Oh, wow, that's great. Looking for a career transition in blockchain domain from Telecom project management. Can you provide some good advice for that? Well, it's really good. You have loads of experience and certifications. I would say at this point, just dive in, start developing something, start figuring out something. Look at projects that you like. Any project that is of interest to you, fork the code, try to make it better, try to find why something is wrong with it. I say just start hacking, sit in your computer and figure things out. All the courses that you have gone through are great, but to be very, very honest with you, courses give you a head start, but what you do after the course in your own time, how you research, how you study, how you experiment, how you break things, how you pretty much struggle your way through finding a new solution is the most important part of learning here. So get on that part and try to code. More you code, more you gain. And try to take part in Ethereum developer meeting summaries. Try to look for all the other development summaries to see what they have to say, what are the struggles that they're going through, and how you can probably, maybe you have some idea, try to take part in the Discord and Telegram groups of those development communities. They're all open, they're all transparent. You just go and start talking. You submit your proposals, you can submit your new ideas through decentralized governance models. You can go to any of these DAO, decentralized applications, and say, okay, you have a better way of doing something. You want to replace something, you put up a DAO governance there, and then people vote. If yours is accepted, people will deploy what you have to say. You don't have to be hired to do something like that. Just go there, be part of the community first. That's the most important part. If you're not part of the community, you're an outsider, and until you're an outsider, you cannot be in the space. You cannot really get into the space. You don't need any more advice than being part of the community, because blockchain's number one goal is community. So get in the community, and then the community will teach you. They will help you. They will take you to the next level. You don't have to do anything. Be there. Oh, have your ears and eyes open and talk around. There are millions and millions of people there who will help you with anything that you want and have, and take you to the next level.
Ways to access these communities, key, like,
So if you go to Telegram and Discord, that is the first tools you need to have on your computer. Download them, and then go to any blockchain projects. It could be Ethereum. You can go to Ethereum and look at where they're discussing. They have their GitHub. They do put up their different chat channels. What are the chat channels their developers are discussing in? In that way, go to any blockchain. It could be any blockchain of your choice. You would see their bug bounty programs for people to find bugs, for their forums, for proposals, for governance. You'd have all the links in the footer of the website of every blockchain. They have everything displayed out there. Just go click on the links, look at the documentation, join those communities. This space is one area in the entire world. In anything that you've done so far, information was private everywhere. Here, information is open, everything is public, everything is available. So make use of that. And if you just start reading what the community is talking about, that will educate you so much more about their thinking process and the angles of how they're approaching something in the world right now.
great. Christian's follow-up question is, what's the language that you mentioned in the beginning for answering the first question?
Okay. I just typed it in the chat.
Yep. Okay, that's done.
I see one about the career transition from Shubham on intellectual property services. Well, intellectual property is a very interesting area right now, because NFTs are having a big trouble with IPs, intellectual properties, because the copyright laws around NFTs are weak, and intellectual properties are not. The laws that we have and the way the blockchain is going are two different directions, because laws are all about regulation, blockchain is all about innovation, and tying them both on a platform comes up with a lot of compromises on both sides. So if the blockchain world compromises, they compromise on security and transparency, whereas the legal world, they'll have to compromise on some of the regulatory aspects. So if you ask me from your transition, I would say start looking at NFTs, look at their copyright laws, look at what makes NFT with a non-commercial license, what's an NFT with a commercial license, what does an NFT with commercial license end up being, because they do say it is considered a security, and how are intellectual properties protected within the NFT world, and how can that intellectual property rights properly be carried over within the blockchain with the right chains of ownership, and how that licensing is going to work, how the renting and the selling models are going to work, or the royalties, and what happens when someone moves an intellectual property from one blockchain to another, because technically when they do that right now, they burn the initial asset in one blockchain and then they recreate it in another. It is the same question as pretty much like teleporting, people moving from one to another. It's not the same. So intellectual property has those challenges. When some asset is moved from one blockchain to another, is it the very same asset, or is it a new asset created there, and how does the intellectual property rights treat it? So there are multiple challenges around that. I don't believe there is one answer to your question, because that industry is an uncharted territory, and there has been no legal precedent in the past to define what it could be, or what the limitations are, what the legal restrictions are, because people are just innovating right now. So if you do dive in right now, your experience would be far more than most people's experience on the intellectual property areas, which means it makes you the right person to come up with solutions that could answer further questions like this in other webinars for other people.
Interesting perspective. Thank you for that.
I see
There's
one from Krishnan. How do blockchain affecting the double entry accounting? Is routine financial transaction processing, accounting, receivables, payables going to be impacted? How do you see this change and result in job redundancies? Okay. Uh, I know accounting, the way the whole accounting is an extremely complicated process, and at least because of the whole regulations and how it is processed. I'm not very good at accounting, nor do I involve myself on it. But when it comes to blockchain, I would believe that it can connect the vendors, the suppliers, the data that they're saving, the transactions live. So if the transaction were to actually happen on the blockchain, not an offline transaction that people are recording, if it's actually happening on the blockchain, then you don't even need to technically account it. You just need to categorize it. So again, when we talk about invoices and how receipts and they all work, it has not been really defined in the blockchain world right now. We don't really have a tool where you can do all of that on chain. There are tools that helps you, like for example, there are some payment processor. This year 2021, we have a lot of payment processor coming up, like Binance Pay and Bitfinex Pay and many more. Even you have quite a lot of decentralized payment ones coming up. But they all process the actual payments. They don't necessarily take care of the invoices and receipts part. And the applications that do that, they do it off chain. They are not actually recording those things on the chain. So when everything does happen on the chain recorded in the blockchain, which is non-editable, then you don't necessarily need to duplicate that. You just need to associate that data with your accounting system, and you already have every data that's uploaded available there. Which not only reduces it, it in fact removes the point of accounting. If you are paying someone in, let's say, USDT from party A to party B, and if the receipts and invoices are uploaded there, you don't need to record that. They don't have to record that it's there. You just need to take that block number and integrate with your system so that a transaction has happened and it has everything. If your wallet is already there, if your wallet ID is identified in your system, it knows that it's an expense made from it, and it's an it's an income that has come in. So if every documentation is on chain, I believe the entire accounting by itself would be invalid, because the way the accounting happens, or the way accounting and auditing is done, is pretty much to revalidate and ensure that no one is making errors and that the expense is justified. If the data is transparently on blockchain, then you pretty much remove all of that, and it simplifies the whole process. But again, I'm not an accounting guy, I'm not a financial guy, so I don't know what other regulatory concerns that they might have. But from a simple business entrepreneur's perspective, if the data is there, if it's verifiable, validatable, every party can see it, everybody can pull it into their own systems, and it can be audited by anybody in the world, governments or banks or institutions or your own auditors. Everybody can audit it. The whole auditing accounting systems are pretty much rendered useless at that point in time. I hope that answers.
Thanks for that. I think one of the parameters is also about different taxes that come into play, right? When you're doing international transfers, right? That could
Well,
also
that's a very interesting point about international transfers, because in the blockchain world you don't have that. People do not know where someone is transferring something from. You don't have a region or anything associated with a particular transaction. So that is for the governments to figure out how they're going to be taxing it, or maybe the governments figure out a way to make it a more open environment. I have no idea how they're going to be handling it. But at this point in the world of blockchain, you don't have geographical boundaries. It's a transaction between two individuals, and that's pretty much it. So again, those are areas which the accounting softwares, like for example, QuickBooks is very fast at evolving things. So maybe they come up with the first blockchain accounting where the blockchain information is pulled in, and only the account for things like the location, region, and some of those manual entries. Or maybe a separate accounting based blockchain comes up, which has all these provisions when the transaction is made, which records this information so that it acts as a digital accounting ledger for everyone and anyone to use. So all those opportunities are pretty wide open. But yes, more and more those questions are going to be coming up, and it's left to the world for them to all figure out on what works for them.
interesting. So one question I see here is from an anonymous person from a customs administration background, how blockchain helps in tracking fraudulent documents like fake invoice, bill of lading
Oh,
the documents?
that's pretty easy because one, when you have the information with the transaction on chain and that information is transacted, nobody's going to probably dupe it. Nobody can cheat it. It's there. So what is, when you're trying to validate in a normal accounting invoices and issues, what do? You like to see, okay, there is a transaction which has been made and the value, let's say, is $100, and you're trying to see if this particular invoice, the reason stated there, the party name stated there, everything matches with that particular transaction. So when you have the whole data on chain, people cannot cheat. They cannot say that they paid someone in cash or they paid someone through other means. It has happened on the blockchain. That's a transaction from party A to party B. It is there. So it completely kills, removes the need for even the old model of having invoices. It changes how we need to actually re-envision how invoices are going to be made, how the receipts are going to be made, because you don't need a receipt in the first place. You have a blockchain confirmation. It has been confirmed. The transaction has happened. Why do you need a receipt? Here's the transaction ID, and you know the status of it. And I think you need to re-envision that whole process. And whenever it comes to anything about creating fake, fraudulent things, just put the data on the blockchain, issue the data on the blockchain. Blockchain certifications are coming for edutech companies. Like we have Forward Protocol, which is based on English Forward, which is a 19 years old English teaching platform. So there, the certifications are right now being programmed to be issued on blockchain, not only for the users of the English Forward as a platform, but for any university, college, or any other institutions around the world, because that is a decentralized education model that the Forward Protocol is pushing forward to. And with that, anyone in the world can use that to issue any form of certification. And that makes it so much more reliable, because people can just say, okay, show me your certification blockchain link. They go there, they verify that it's been issued by a particular ballot, which is the verifiable valid ballot of that organization, which they publicly display on their site. People cannot cheat it. That's the valid from where they issue their certifications, and that is the valid from where you have that particular transaction, and it's verified. So the ways of verifying is so much easier. That is the zero, the basic utility of blockchain, the most basic function there. So that will be taken care of without any effort, without any challenges whatsoever in the space right now.
Interesting. I hope that answered the person's question because it was anonymous. There are three questions from Nitish. You can pick them up in order or.
Okay, what's the perspective for telecom 5G industry? I'm not really sure how that industry works or what area of that industry the blockchain is fitting in. It's just not my area. But I'm sure various other parties are figuring that out, because I have taken part in various entities for providing the block, let's say, bandwidth. So let's say I'm a user, I have 100 Mbps bandwidth, but I'm only using, let's say, 10 Mbps. That's what most people use. Unless we're downloading something, we're not using 90% of bandwidth. So now that bandwidth can be shared with anyone else. So instead of wasting the bandwidth and trying to buy new bandwidth, there are entities, multiple entities in the space where people pretty much just share their unused bandwidth and someone else can use it, reducing the cost of bandwidth, reducing the wastage of bandwidth. Because the way the bandwidth and the pricing works, from what I understood, is that the amount of bandwidth that's present is a cost that they're incurring. Whether someone uses it or not, it is there. That's a maintenance cost. That's what people pay for. But if they don't use it, and if they can lease it out, rent it out, which I'm sure it's against terms of many of the sharing, might be against the terms of entities, but then, well, it's blockchain. Everything is sharing economy here. And as that happens more and more, the cost of bandwidth is coming down. That way, the cost of literally every other element would also be infected. And there'll be an opportunity for people to change how they're sharing it. So within the world of 5G, maybe there are more opportunities for people to explore, or maybe you can explore that and write a paper about it. And your other question here, is it on no, Ethereum virtual machines is not on the virtual machine, but it is running Ethereum. It's like that is a virtual machine by itself. You're not running it on a virtual machine, but that by itself is a virtual machine. But of course, any of those blockchains, you can deploy it in any cloud infrastructure or any VMs as well. Many of them do run on Amazon AWS or many more. So you can just go look at all those different possibilities out there. For blockchains, pretty much everyone's talking about technical aspects versus development, but about the framework, it's still in initial development or ideation phase. I would say blockchain is going to be in development for next 10 years or more. It is an evolving space, so it is going to be a lot of development for not in 10 years, maybe 10, 20 years. Just like all the mobile OS is constantly developed, and we still have new versions of all OSs coming up. So blockchain will also always be in development, but yes, it is in a much nascent stage. But this is the right time. If you're trying to get in when it's matured, it's going to be overcrowded. It is an early stage, but if you do get in right now, understand, look at what's happening, then it just sets the stage for you to actually take part in the conversation and move things forward from here.
Great, thank you for that. Any other questions any other participants have, please feel free to ask. I'll ask one question which was asked in yesterday's session, which was with respect to public versus private in terms of offerings with career opportunities in blockchain. Do you have any views on that?
Yes. At this point, public blockchains have more opportunity because that's where everyone are developing. That's where more activities, more demand is. So the moment someone adopts anything public, they can just shoot up. The demand is already there. If they do adopt a private blockchain, then they might have to depend on that ecosystem, how it's growing. Most of the private blockchains, they go down after a period of few months, literally, not even years, few months. So that is a fast changing world. So public blockchains have more opportunity there, more avenues there. But if you do adopt something private, and if it's an economy that you believe in, it's a blockchain that you know will live there for many years to come, evolving, and it's a transferable skill, then by all means go ahead, create your specialization there. But I'm all in for public, open, free, and available data that's out there for anyone and everyone to use, for the world to explore, experiment, not be locked up by something very, very specific. Shubham has a question. Can quantum computing affect cryptographic algorithms working behind the blockchains? Not really, because though there's been that argument that people have been talking about, there are also many other solutions that has come up. So I believe one and a half year back, this argument was very much profoundly discussed. But after that, there's been a lot of changes, because, for example, if you look at proof of stake, quantum computing cannot do anything about it. Probably the proof of work can be affected, but most of the blockchains right now are transition to proof of stake. But even if you look at proof of work, what happens there is something that we'll have to wait and watch, because right now anything that I or anyone says is speculation. We are not really seeing. Technically, we have done on theoretically, but technically and practically, we are not seeing anything happen that affects the sanity of the blockchain proof of work world. But I guess we'll have to watch. I'm sure we'll watch it in our lifetimes if we stay tuned to what's happening in the space.
Okay. Could you specify a little bit about proof of stake, because we could not discuss it in our previous sessions?
Okay, so like proof of work, which, as you know, is based on the amount of hash power, the equipment's GPUs and everything. Proof of stake is all about how much you hold. So if you own a good portion of tokens or a particular coin, and then you stake it, so that's that there are two models of proof of stake. One is normal proof of stake, and another is proof of delegated stake. So those can become validators, validator nodes. And the moment you stake and become a validator node, you get to vote on it, and you do exactly what the miners in a proof of work gets to do. But then it's just not based on how much hash power you contribute, but it's based on how much crypto assets you stake somewhere and then run the node based on. So it is a different model, because, for example, if you look at smaller proof of stake networks, a rich guy can spend billions of dollars, buy a particular network's 51% plus power in terms of their coins, and then he can start dominating that. But if something is as big as Ethereum, it is going to be impossible for someone, unless they're putting in massive millions and multi-billion dollars funds there. They're not going to be able to manipulate something like that, which is why public blockchains which are out there are more secure, because it takes insane amount of money and energy for someone to manipulate it. And proof of stake is, again, doesn't depend on electricity or those efforts, which makes it so much more environment friendly, green. So the Ethereum 2.0 is moving towards complete proof of stake. Right now it's on proof of work, but the 2.0's whole objective of Ethereum is running on proof of stake, which is what Binance Smart Chain runs on right now, which is why projects running on that, they call themselves environment friendly, because they don't necessarily hurt the environment, which to me, even Bitcoin doesn't hurt the environment. That's another argument of the mainstream space on what they say. But if you look at the data and statistics, even proof of work doesn't affect as much as banking industry does. So yes, I hope that answers your question. And we have a hand raised from Abhishek Verma.
Abhishek, could you just type in your question. That makes it easier for us to answer it. And in the interim, while the Q&A still continues for the last 5 minutes of the session, I'd like to thank everybody who stayed till the end of the session, and also for you to know that we do have, as upGrad, we offer a lot of programs across verticals in the areas of software development, data science, machine learning, product management, which is an MBA, and digital marketing. So feel free to do look up upgrad.com and find courses which are relevant to you. upGrad is on a mission to help working professionals upskill themselves and find uh, and transition and accelerate the careers to the point where they would have loved to. Shubham, the recordings for uh, 1 and 2 would be shared on your emails. If you got the invite for this session, the same email ID would be used. So ensure you have the right email ID shared with us for us to share recordings with you. And I'm dropping in the chat a link for the blockchain program that we have. It's a 7.5 month program. We do have a lot of involvement of faculty from Triple IT Bangalore, plus industry professionals who are teaching this program, so that you can get all the relevant insights. And Karnika is currently not a part of the faculty for the program, but he's volunteered to do this webinar with us. So thank you so much, Key, for this gesture. And any more questions? I think we could. Okay. Um, so I do have 1 more minute to tell people about upGrad. That means we have people from across 85 plus countries work enrolled in our programs currently. And if you're looking at a great peer network and an alumni status from some of the world's leading global universities, do feel free to look up some of our programs. Feel free to write to us at admissions@upgrad.com for any questions you may have that Key couldn't answer, or you didn't get the chance to ask him, and or any of the previous sessions that we've had. And if you'd like to set up a call with any of our career counselors or our admission counselors, feel free to drop an email for the same as well.
So if you guys want to connect, you have my LinkedIn as well here. You can connect, and we always are hiring. So if someone is excited, someone goes ahead and becomes good at what they do, then you always can reach out to us as well. We'll be happy to onboard amazing smart professionals to our organization, always.
Thanks a lot for that, Key. Definitely an exciting proposition for all of those who stayed till the end. I think the folks listening to the recording I sort of missed this. So yeah, this is something we should have started with. But yeah, thank you for that.
The
And
blockchain space requires patience, right?
yeah,
It requires patience.
absolutely. And thanks for the wonderful insights. With definitely do go ahead, look up some of these communities on Discord and Telegram, as Key mentioned. And any other closing notes, Key, that you have for, because I can see all the ones who've stayed so far and the ones who joined in uh, are really excited about the prospects of this field. Any other resources that they should be looking at?
Well, I just see a question from Krishnan that do you recruit people without the blockchain experience? No, because blockchain experience is essential. But the point is, people who spend even 3 months sitting in their home learning about blockchain, they gain more experience to actually join in. So you don't really need to have a blockchain working experience. All you need to do is the blockchain knowledge of learning it. So the industry doesn't look for people with actual work experience, because people don't have it. It's not like a 20 years industry to have that. If you have spent 3 months in your home because you cannot go out in Corona and you just learn things on your computer, that is an experience that counts in the blockchain world. So certifications and degrees or work experience don't matter. If you have the skill, you know you can deliver, then that's it. That's all matters. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, he's saying great, super.
Awesome then.
Okay. Thank you for this, Key, and thanks to everybody. Have a good evening and look forward to having you with us for another interesting session. Uh, okay. Company's name, Key. Okay, you've already typed that. Great. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Sure.